All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever seen a behavior and just thought, why does that happen? You know, the kind of repetitive actions that someone does even when they're totally alone? Well, today we're going to get to the bottom of that. We're diving into a really fascinating concept called automatic reinforcement. So, here's the big question, right? Why do some of these repetitive behaviors happen when nobody's even watching? I mean, think about it. Most of the time, we do stuff to get a reaction from someone else, right? A pat on the back, a smile, maybe something we want. But when there's no audience, what's the point? What's the driver?
And just so we're all on the same page, we're talking about things like, body rocking or that quick hand flapping you might see, or maybe spinning an object over and over, or even lining things up in perfect straight rows. Now, from the outside, it can look a little puzzling, maybe even random. But what we're about to find out is that these actions have a really, really important purpose. It's just internal.
Okay, so this brings us to what I'm calling the repetitive behavior puzzle. We're going to figure out why these behaviors stick around and what's happening under the hood, so to speak.
And here it is, the key to our puzzle. It's a concept called automatic reinforcement. And honestly, it's pretty straightforward when you break it down. It just means the behavior itself feels good. The reward isn't something someone gives you. It's the sensation the action creates. The feeling is the reward. The reward is built right in.
So, let's put these two ideas side by side, because this is super important. On one hand, you've got automatic reinforcement. That's internal. It's all about a sensory feeling that the person controls completely. On the other hand, you have social reinforcement. That's external. That's when someone else gives you praise or attention or an item. See the difference? One is from the inside out, the other is from the outside in. And that distinction, it changes everything.
And look, this isn't some rare, fringe idea. We're talking about a huge chunk of behaviors. Research shows that for individuals with developmental disabilities, somewhere between 25 and 40% of challenging behaviors are driven by this automatic function. That's a massive number. So you can see why getting a handle on this is just essential if we want to provide real, meaningful support.
All right, so we know what it is now. But how in the world do you test for something that's happening inside someone's head? And even more important, how do we use that information to actually help? Let's get into the science of it. Let's decode this thing.
This right here, this quote, is from a study that was a total game changer. The researchers had this brilliant what-if moment. They thought, okay, what if, instead of just trying to make the behavior stop, we figured out the sensory need it was meeting, and then we met that same need but with something else, something safer or more appropriate? What if we could find a perfect match for that sensation?
So let's meet the people at the heart of this study. First, there was Betsy. She was 6, and her dangerous climbing and jumping seemed to be all about getting that feeling of movement, what scientists call kinesthetic feedback. Then you had Brad, who was 8. The researchers guessed that his behavior, manipulating saliva, was providing a very specific tactile feeling. And finally, there was Tyrone, 17, whose hand-mouthing was likely serving an oral sensory need.
The experiment they designed was just beautiful in its simplicity. Step 1. Make an educated guess about the sensory feedback the behavior provides. Step 2. Find some other safe items that create a similar feeling, the matched stimuli. Step 3, and this is the clever part, see what happens when you give the person access to those matched items versus when you give them other stuff they really like, but that doesn't match the sensation. Step 4, you just watch and measure. Does the original behavior go down?
And you guys, the results were just wow. They weren't just a little bit convincing. They were dramatic. And it wasn't a fluke. It worked for all 3 people, even though their ages and behaviors were totally different.
Okay, first up, Betsy and her climbing. Take a look at this. The first bar, that's her baseline, climbing almost 3 times a minute. Now the middle bar, that's when she got other toys she liked. It helped a little, you can see, but then look at that third bar. That's when they gave her things that matched that movement sensation she was seeking. Things like an air mattress to jump on. The behavior basically vanished. Gone. We're talking a 99% drop. Just incredible.
Okay, now let's look at Brad. Same story, different behavior. His baseline for saliva play was way up there, over 6 times a minute. Again, other cool toys helped a bit, but not that much. Then they brought in the matched stuff, things like shaving cream, gooey textures he could play with, and bam, the behavior plummeted, a drop of over 95%. The pattern is undeniable. And just to really drive it home, let's look at Tyrone. His hand-mouthing was happening a lot, nearly 27 times a minute. I mean, that's almost constant. And you can see giving him other preferred items did almost nothing. But as soon as he had access to safe, matched oral items, things he could put in his mouth, the behavior just fell off a cliff. It's so clear.
So what's the big takeaway? The researchers said it perfectly. It wasn't about preference. It wasn't just give them a toy they like. It was the sensory match. That was the secret ingredient. You had to find something that scratched the exact same sensory itch as the original behavior.
And this discovery wasn't just an interesting lab result, it was a revolution. It gave us what we can call the matched stimuli solution. This is where we take all that cool science and turn it into real-world, compassionate ways to help.
But hold on a second. This brings up a really important, kind of tricky question. Just because we can reduce these behaviors, does that mean we should? Should the goal always be to make them stop?
And the answer, from an ethical standpoint, is a hard no. Absolutely not. The goal is never just to make someone look normal or conform. We only step in and intervene when a behavior is actually causing harm, either to the person or others, or when it's creating a serious barrier to learning, making friends, or just being a part of the community. It's always about safety and improving quality of life, period.
So what's in the toolbox for providing that support? Well, a bunch of really smart, evidence-based strategies. Obviously, number one is providing that matched stimulation we've been talking about. But it's also about making the whole environment more sensory-friendly. Sometimes it involves gently interrupting a harmful behavior and redirecting to the safer option. And one really cool strategy is to provide that sensory input on a regular schedule so the person doesn't even feel the need to engage in the behavior in the first place.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The real goal isn't just to make a number on a chart go down. It's to help an individual engage with their world in new, independent, and fulfilling ways. It's about skill building. It's about opening doors that might have been closed before.
So let's bring it all together. When you look at all this, you see that understanding automatic reinforcement isn't just a small tweak. It's a complete shift in how we approach practical support. It's about looking past the behavior itself and asking, what's underneath?
And that leaves us with one final, really powerful thought. I want you to think about this. What if, from now on, our first question is never, how do we stop this? What if our first question is always, what purpose does this serve? Because changing that one question, well, it changes everything. It moves us away from control and towards compassion, towards understanding, and that's where real support begins.